Hello again, it's Patrick Kelly with a special edition of the KWCA podcast. Today, coming to you via Zoom with KWCA President and Burlington Head Coach Doug Vanderlinden. Coach, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Pat. Excited. Don't know about where you're at right now, but we've got negative 30-degree wind chills and several inches of snow, and looks like we had no school today. It looks like no school for us tomorrow too.
Yeah, the challenges just continue to mount for the 2021 season, don't they?
Exactly.
So, as we prepare for the stretch of this unique season, you thought it'd be a good time to catch up with our membership on the latest happenings and explain to them some new ideas for getting the word out for the from the KWC organization, and to help the sport move forward in the state of Kansas. I might add, this home stretch has been just unlike any that I've been a part of. But here we are, and we can all be thankful for that.
Yeah. If you were to ask me to bet $1,000 back in November and give me 10-to-1 odds, would we be talking about postseason stuff? I'm not sure I'd have taken you up on it. Right now, just with all the lay of the land and the landscape. But I tell you, a lot of coaches have worked together and administrators, and we changed and adapted and modified practices, and you just have to really think pretty highly of all those that have been involved in the sport in trying to make this season work.
Yeah, there hasn't been a whole lot of neat takeaways, but that certainly is one, just the way that the wrestling community has made things happen for sure.
Yes.
So let's jump right into it here. Explain the thought behind the diversion from the traditional year-end KWCA meetings that we normally have at the state tournaments, at the regional tournaments.
The biggest thing that we were worried about, and we started talking about this about a month ago, was just the idea that with now 2 divisions of girls, and in addition, the idea that the smaller schools, 4A, 321A, girls division 2, also had this extra week of district tournaments. There was just no way for 14, 15 board members to try to cover all those meetings. Even as we look at breaking it down to just the regional meetings, again, coverage for all that was going to be very difficult for boys and girls as well. Maybe some teams didn't qualify a wrestler from the district tournament to the regional tournament. So we talked about where do you have those traditional meetings, and basically kind of threw tradition out the window here and said, what if we present that same information in one uniform video package, and then got that out in the hands of all the coaches, so they're all hearing the same thing. There's a consistent message, and then we can begin to focus on award recognitions and also what we need to do to make the sport better through rule modifications.
Okay. So who are the KWCA board members, and how can the membership get access to the updates and the latest news?
Well, I'm going to share with you a screen here real quick, Pat, and hopefully you're seeing that screen. So it starts off with you and I. This next slide are the board members themselves. And so I'm going to kick this into a slideshow mode. Are you able to see that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Those are our board members for the 2021 season. So you'll see the variety of positions we have. Kind of the first line of people that a lot of times coaches will talk to are their class reps. So our 6A rep, Pat Naughton at Lawrence, 5A rep, Nathan Brockelman, the great Ben, 4A rep, Brandon Terry, and our 321A rep, Bill Johnson. So those are kind of the 4 class reps. Then right now, Doug Kretzer is our class rep for both D1 and D2 girls. So he is the girls class rep for now. And then Mike Davison is our junior high middle school rep. All these other individuals, you and I included, as well as Nate Nas of Lincoln, I mean, anyone can reach out to any one of those members, but those 4 class reps are kind of the frontline individuals. I just want to share some things, again, with people in terms of how do you find us. Again, if you go to our website, which has become pretty popular, www.kansaswrestling.org, The board members, along with their email addresses, can be found right there. And then as well, we have 3 other social media accounts that we use, being a Twitter account, our Facebook account, and people have messaged us there, as well as what you're doing with podcast, all 3 of those social media accounts. So really 4 different ways to kind of follow us, keep up with updates, but also to be able to reach out and contact us as individuals. Will be responding to messages on all 3 of those major social media networks.
All right, very good. So how can I check my membership status?
Well, the best way to do that, Pat, is to go to the website, www.kansaswrestling.org. And then across the top, that menu bar structure, you'll find a link there called membership. If you click on that, that will take you to a Google document that you'll be able to view that shows all of the current members broken down by classification. So that membership list right now of over 170 members reflects everyone who was a member by February 1st. February 1st is key because we have to be a member by February 1st to be considered for the KWCA classification Coach of the Year award. Okay.
All right. Well, simple enough. So no username, password, just get in there and look and see if they're awesome. Awesome.
Right.
So now speaking of those awards, I think that, KWCA does a lot of great things and they do it right. And one of those things are the annual awards. They do a great job of recognizing the movers and shakers in the sport of wrestling in the state. So how does one go about nominating somebody for the KWCA annual awards?
Well, again, I'm going to go back to a screen share that we can share with individuals here. And I'm going to start this slide. We talked a little bit about the membership, and I want to make sure to point out that if you're not on that February list, the February 1st list, you can still register online and become a member or send us the paper vote. Basically, at that point, though, since it's after the February 1st deadline, you'll be allowed to vote for KWCA Class Coach of the Year, so 6A, 5A, et cetera. You'll be allowed to vote. You just will not be on the ballot at that point in time. You'll also be able to nominate for the end of the season awards. And so real quick, just a quick reminder to individuals about how that works. We have the KWCA Coach of the Year voted on by class, by the members that were there. And again, you're on the ballot if you were a member by February 1st. The Assistant Coaches of the Year are nominated by a member head coach. So that is something we'll talk about here in a second, is that process. Officials of the Year, we nominate by our KWCA members. A group called Administrators of the Year often recognizes athletic directors, principals, superintendents in schools that have gone above and beyond to support wrestling in their school. We like to honor and recognize a middle school coach of the year, somebody who's making a real impact in their local community, that in turn is making an impact on their high school teams. USAW Youth Wrestler of the Year is something that we've recognized as well in extending our awards into the youth levels. Another award's called the Team Support Person of the Year. That award has gone to cheer sponsors, lead parents, individuals that go above and beyond, whether they may be team photographers, just all kinds of roles. The mom or the dad who prepares an entire meal every time there's a weigh-in during the course of the season. Just somebody who's really dedicated themselves to supporting your team. Media of the Year recognizes TV, radio, print, as well as social media type people who are promoting the sport of wrestling. Those are nominated by you, the members, as well as then a Contributor of the Year, somebody within the state who's gone above and beyond, who we feel has really helped grow Kansas wrestling. An example of one of those individuals was Mike Juby, who you remember Mike, was the USA Wrestling chairman for many, many years, he and his wife, Kathy, and their dedication to wrestling earned them Contributor of the Year recognition several years ago. In addition, another set of awards that we have are the Hall of Fame. Uh, and Basically, what we ask is that you detail write up, you put together a biography and a write up of that individual and what makes their career noteworthy for Hall of Fame contention. We strongly recommend that you work with Doug Broadfoot of Heston High School. He's the head coach and on our board as well, so that you kind of are able to put together a package that gives us the information we need to be able to truly honor that coach. Rick Langerot, who had a great career at Mulvane High School, was our 2020 Hall of Fame person. We're still waiting for his induction ceremonies because of the virtual clinic this year, but that's an example of an individual who will be going into our Hall of Fame. Now, the big thing everybody asks is, okay, how do I do this? And we used to do these all through paper forms, that an email that would go to the class reps. On February 1st, we opened up the following website, www.kwcaforms.org. Again, www.kwcaforms.org. That site has been designed by Nate Nas and basically has all of the different award categories there. So individuals are able to choose and fill out an online submission for all of those awards, in addition to a group of awards that we're really proud of. And those are awards we've expanded called the Academic Awards. Okay. We have expanded that under Shane Miller's leadership, who's our KWCA academic chairperson. Used to be we just recognized seniors. We now recognize juniors or seniors for this award based on their cumulative GPA. And there are some additional wrestling requirements. One of those requirements is a certain number of matches. We're aware that this year with COVID, that may have been difficult. So there is an exception for that you can apply for when you email Coach Miller about that. But the junior senior awards, again, recognize kids on the first team and honorable mention for outstanding performance in the classroom, in addition to being varsity level wrestlers. Then there are also the team academic awards, and those are broken down by category: D1, D2 girls, and then 321A, 4A, 5A, and 6A on the guys side. That is based on your fall 2020 unweighted GPA for either your district team, if you're part of the smaller schools, or your regional team, if you're part of the larger schools. In order to be considered for a team academic award, on the boys' side, you must have had at least 7 boys entered on your district or regional roster. For the girls, you had to have 6 or more girls, again, on your district or regional roster to be eligible for consideration. And again, that's based on your fall semester GPA. You'll actually complete these online forms for each of these awards. And for the academic awards, your counselor or principal will then send a confirmation email to Shane Miller, and his email address is on the form, confirming that the GPAs match up and align, so that we have a whole lot of integrity in those academic awards. And then certificates are sent out, and believe it or not, the top team award in every classification, so that'll now be 6 team awards, there will be an academic team state champion. And that academic team state champion will earn a state champion plaque that we'll present to them, hopefully, at the fall 2021 KWCA clinic. I got to point out that all KWCA awards and nominations must be submitted online by Friday, March 5th at 3:30 p.m.
All right, very good. And that, that was a lot to go through there. And, I think we as a coaching community can really appreciate the work that goes on behind the scenes with that. And it really is, I know I've for years have recognized the academic. I've got a board in my room, and I know a lot of others do as well. So it's really, really an important piece to what we do. So we definitely appreciate that, and encourage people to get their get their nominations in and get their academic information in as well.
Absolutely. Another set of awards that we don't talk a lot about, Pat, that I get to deal with kind of as in the dual role of president and treasurer, are service awards for our profession. Coaches that have coached 15 years, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years. It's very difficult for us to kind of maintain this master database. But every year when coaches apply to be a KWCA member, it asks them, how many years have they coached, and then have they received these certain awards. For example, at 15 and 20 years, a very nice certificate that can be suitable for framing is sent out. As coaches get into those 25, 30, 35, 40 years, we actually send out a plaque that they can display proudly in their office or their homes, recognizing them for service. However, if we don't know about that, it's difficult for us to honor them. So it's so important that is whether they fill out the paper registration or they fill out the online registration, that they let us know if they've gotten those awards. Same thing's true with 100, 200, 300, and 400 dual wins award. At 100 and 200, it's a certificate. At 300 and 400, it's a plaque for those achievements, for longevity and success. And we've got a couple of coaches that are getting ready to transition to join the group of 400, and a couple in the 400s that are chasing 500 from that standpoint. But again, difficult to honor those coaches if they don't let us know. And it's important that they're a member in order for us to see that. I think this year we're giving out about 25 service awards, both from the dual standpoint as well as the years of experience. And again, just another way for us to recognize the importance of coaches and the milestones that they achieve.
All right, very good. So let's switch gears a little bit here and talk about rule recommendations. What are the timelines and procedures for submitting rule recommendations for KCA consideration?
It's a unique piece, and I'm gonna jump to a couple of things here for that, Pat, to kind of get us started here. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Pat, we deal with what I consider, and we've kind of been shy on this in the past, but I focus on three different areas for rules recommendations. The first one is the process of working through the KCA, the Kansas Coaches Association. And Dennis Charbonneau is our rep to that board. And we've got to make recommendations to them of things that we would like to see that are more Kansas specific. Okay. So in other words, the KCA doesn't focus on National Federation rules. They don't focus on procedural things that KSHA may be involved in. They're focused on the rules that are within the state of their control. And then based on our vote, our recommendations to them, they'll take some of those items to the KIAAA, which are the Athletic Directors Association, and then on to the KSHA boards. For example, some things that we'll be asking members to vote on in the State of the State survey. One is called the KWCA, the Kansas 14 weight class recommendation. Okay. And the second one is the KWCA certification recommendation for 2022. And the third one will be that we know this came about as a result of COVID, but we would like to see KSHA maintain the two divisions that they've now created in the girls' side. We're hoping that was not just a one-year thing. We don't think it is, but we would like some confirmation that we'll continue to see Division I and Division II within girls wrestling so that girls wrestling can continue to grow. Okay. I want to show you, I'm going to jump back here and show you a couple of slides that kind of focus on this. So this past summer, the KWCA put together a weight management committee, and that was made of several individuals chaired by Dennis Charbonneau. As you know, Pat, and many of the coaches know, there was a push from the National Federation and from the state of Pennsylvania to cut back the number of weight classes nationally. And the number has varied from 12 to 13 to 14. Even some places have talked about 15. But there was a huge push by the state of Pennsylvania to cut the weight classes back to 12 in response to dual forfeits and length of tournaments and those types of things. KWCA has pushed to try to lead on the national level. And so one of our goals was to take a look at that same data that other states were looking at and the National Federation was looking at with our groups of coaches. And again, Dennis Charbonneau and a committee of officials and other coaches were involved in that. They took a look at data from 41 states through what's called the OPC, the Online Performance Calculator, as well as data that Mark Lentz provided from the 2020 alpha and certification weights. We took a look at all that data, as well as the National Institute of Health, the average weights of teenage boys and girls. And in looking at all that, this group came back with a recommendation that actually was created by an individual within the NWCA called the National 14. And if you notice what this does, it keeps us at 14 weight classes, but it kind of pulls a weight class back out of the high end and puts it back in the middle. Many coaches who had coached for a period of time remember when there was 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 52. And in order to shift that weight class to a higher weight, we sacrificed a weight class in the middle, which is really kind of the most common weights for high school wrestlers. And so what we did is we actually created this log jam of wrestlers right there in those middles. And so in looking at the national data, you'll see the 14 that we've come up with. What's interesting, I want to make coaches aware that KWCA just last week sent out a survey for the National Federation. And if you're a head coach, you should have gotten that in your email. If not, you can contact KWCA to get that link to vote. And there were a whole lot of questions that, to be honest, were, in my opinion, kind of frivolous. They were clarification type things. But one of the questions they did ask was, should the National Federation consider allowing states to choose between 12, 13, and 14? So rather than a hard National Federation dictate of, we're going to go to 12 weight classes nationwide, or we're going to have 14 weight classes nationwide, the National Federation is looking at saying, you as a state can determine what you would like to use for your weight classes. And we really believe that this our 14 recommendation is something that nationally, if there's a set national weight, we'd like to see the nationals look at. And if not, it's something we'd like to see Kansas look at if we're given that option. The second thing that KWCA Weight Management Committee looked at was a modification to the certification process. And what we'd like to do is, the key points to this from this committee was, one, the alpha process would remain the same. So we would still have the ability to alpha certify the week before or the first day of practice. The alpha weigh-in will count as an initial certification. So if you weigh 194 pounds, you would be automatically certified at 195 pounds. However, what we are asking to have changed is that follow-up certification weigh-ins do not require a hydration assessment. And Pat, what we found is with shoulder to shoulder weigh-ins, if I come to your place to wrestle, your athletic director doesn't want to have to deal with my hydration process. You know,
Amen to that.
and my athletic director hosting a tournament the first weekend doesn't want to deal with 12 sets of clear cups for the hydration process. It just bogs down the weigh-in process. And so what we're saying is here's what we think is different. Why do we do a second hydration assessment when we are now doing shoulder to shoulder weigh-ins, and one half of your weigh-ins have to be at that weight class in order to compete there at regionals? In other words, if you're not hydrated and you've sucked that weight down, you're not going to be able to continue to make that weight dehydrated all season long. You're not going to get 50% of those weigh-ins shoulder to shoulder. So what we're asking is that we eliminate the second hydration piece. That would allow an opposing coach, I come to your place and I weigh in, my kid makes his certified weight there. I take the weigh-in sheet signed by you or the official you have running the weigh-in, and now we can enter that in the certification system without a second hydration test. Okay? And the committee truly believes that with that, you would still go ahead and have your December date and then come back from Christmas break with a 2-pound weight allowance. So again, just to clean things up for athletic directors and people that are running events, eliminating the second hydration assessment, because the 50% rule and shoulder to shoulder really takes care of that. In addition to 2-day tournaments having 2-day weigh-ins, we think that has eliminated a lot of the extreme hydration issues that we were dealing with.
Right.
So I'm going to come out of there real quick, and I'm going to show you one other document that I would love to have input from coaches on. So we talked about the first couple. We talked about keeping the girls wrestling at 2 divisions with the 5A, 6A split, the 4-3-2A, 1 split. There's a couple of national rules that we would like to see if Kansas coaches would like to see us push. There are other avenues beyond just working through KCA and KWCA to make changes. For example, there is the Scholastic Congress that the NWCA runs. If you remember the uniform change that came about in wrestling about 4 years ago now, Pat, that actually came from the NWCA to the National Federation. So if we can get a significant number of states to agree to some of these items, then the NWCA does have voting pull and an influence on the National Federation of High School Sports. So, for example, the 45-minute rule that so many of us have dealt with this past year with especially the postseason tournaments and with duels, we've dealt with that. Do we want to make a push to have that change from 45 minutes to 30 minutes? If so, that's something we would need to push at the national level. Do we want to focus on a national change from 5 matches to 6 matches in a day? Some tournaments try to run a 16-person bracket. And in a 16-person bracket, if it's true full double elimination, like the traditional regionals and state have been, then if you do that in one day to save instructional time and travel time and overnight stays, then you run into that 5-match rule. And I'm sure you and I have both seen that many, many times. So do we think it's realistic that an athlete could wrestle 6 matches in a day? Another change at the national level that's been talked about is dual tiebreaker criteria number 1. If you want to make forfeits an issue, don't cut down the number of weight classes. Make your number 1 criteria the team that gives up the fewest number of forfeits in a duel is declared the winner. So in other words, you and I duel, we end up in a 36-36 tie. But I have 2 open weight classes and you only have 1 open weight class. you would win the duel because you filled more weight classes. If you take a look, track wrestling automatically does that. That's how track does their tiebreaker criteria. The National Federation rule book goes through 20 other criteria that they view as important. So that is one that coaches have brought up as a change they would like to see at the national level. And an interesting one that we had sent to us by a coach was that no other sport does the referee have the authority to deduct team points in a game. So in other words, if there's a technical foul in a basketball game, they don't take away 2 points from the team that gets a technical foul. Or if there's an unsportsmanlike conduct in a football game, you don't take away 1 or 2 or 3 points off the scoreboard. Wrestling is the only sport in which the penalty somehow involves a deduction in team points. And I thought that was an interesting rule idea. And so we've got it on our list of things that we'll be asking coaches to weigh in on. If you take a look right down here, Pat, hopefully you can see this. Do you see that tiny URL?
Yes.
That I just highlighted? This document is an editable document. I would love to have other coaches weigh in over this next week on some topics they consider important. This would be like what you would have done at the regional meeting at the past. You would have shared those concepts and ideas. We're going to gather all those together in what we call the State of the State survey, where we go out and ask these very specific questions to all of our coaches to get results back. And then as a KWCA board at our spring meeting in March, then we'll decide what are the next sets of topics that we'll begin to push and focus on based on what our membership tells us.
All right. So bottom line with these surveys and these input from coaches, KWCA, NFHS, KWCA, NWCA. What's your message for coaches to encourage them to fill out the surveys and get their voices heard?
Well, the key thing is numbers, is getting numbers and getting coaches to participate in this survey. Last year's survey, we had some very strong data points that we had never had before, because we got close to 175 coaches weighing in and giving their input. When we start talking to these different organizations, if we say, well, half the coaches in Kansas, if we go to the KCA and say half the coaches in Kansas are interested in keeping 2 divisions of girls wrestling, to be quite honest, that number doesn't push anyone to action. But when we say 95% of the Kansas coaches believe that we should continue forward with 2 divisions of girls wrestling, or 95% of Kansas coaches believe that we should modify the hydration, the certification process to reflect the new shoulder-to-shoulder process, and still keep our athletes safe in the process of weight management. Then all of a sudden, those numbers have more meaning to decision makers like the KWCA Executive Board, the KCA, and also, like I said, we have a real focus that there are several ways for us to approach how do you get modifications. The KCA is one route, and it's an important route, but it's not the only route for us to go about making changes. But again, when we talk about 95% of coaches, 200 coaches in the state of Kansas believe that, that carries a significant amount of clout as we talk about that with key decision makers.
Okay, very good. So switching gears again, the 2020 Fall Clinic was much different than any of the previous 49 from all accounts. But I believe it was a success. I think we put together really a quality product for the coaches, and have gotten some good comments in that regard. With that said, I think we all enjoy the face-to-face interaction and seeing people from different parts of the state each fall when we do the clinic. So first, recap the 2020 online event, and then let us know what's up for the 2021 fall clinic.
Well, what was interesting, we were really fortunate that the NWCA, which is the National Wrestling Coaches Association, they had to go virtual as well. And they had a high level of success with their virtual clinic. And thanks to some encouragement from Nate Nas and some support from Coaches Insider, uh, NWCA was pushed to help sponsor state clinics because they knew that many of our states were going to be in the exact same boat. So, I wish we could say Kansas created the first virtual clinic. We didn't. We were one of the first states and we were a highly successful state, but it was due to the partnership with NWCA and Coaches Insider that made that possible. And we were able to put together 10 sessions, and I was very surprised. We had right at 101 coaches attend that clinic, which was actually higher than the face-to-face clinic the year before. And part of that was due to the fact that, you were able to buy into the virtual clinic for 90 days. So, if you didn't get to attend a session, then for 90 days, you could still log on and attend a session, watch a session. Plus, we had all those other sessions to draw from. We're going to have some tough decisions to make this spring and into early summer. And that is, do things begin to ease up in the COVID world from the standpoint of our ability to have a gathering of 100 or we get to the banquet, 200 people, will those gathering restrictions still apply or not? So, can we find the right community, the right place that would allow us to do that? So hopefully with all the things we're hearing about vaccines and everything else, we'll see that. The second thing is, and you got to be careful when you use this word with educators, because the word hybrid, doesn't have a good connotation right now in education as you talk about hybrid learning, but do we have some kind of a hybrid conference where there is a face-to-face component and those sessions are being recorded so that they can be viewed online as well? What does that look like? And I know even the NWCA is considering that as well, a possible hybrid clinic that has both components to it. I'm most saddened by, other than the interactions, the face-to-face, the social interactions that we've got of coaches meeting and working together, was our chance to honor people face-to-face. We lost the banquet, lost the chance to induct Rick Langerot into the Hall of Fame, but we also had lots of great coaches of the year, assistants of the year. There were a lot of great people that we still have tried to recognize, but it's still not the same format as the banquet where we gather this big group of wrestling supporters together to really say thank you to these people who have gone above and beyond. So that's the one thing we struggle with in a virtual world. So I wish I could give you the crystal ball answer that says, yes, we're going to be here, but we've got several options on the table. And again, hopefully over the next couple of months, our numbers will become much clearer and we'll see kind of where we're able to take this. But there will be some form of a KWCA clinic again in the fall of 2021.
All right. Well, Doug, you've really covered a lot of ground today. Any final thoughts before we sign off for today?
Well, Pat, I appreciate you doing this. We did a session similar to this, a couple of them now. We did one with Mark Lentz and Dr. Earl Walker over Christmas break, focused on the mental well-being of coaches and helping develop resilient wrestlers. I think that was a positive. I've gotten several positive comments there. We did a follow-up with Mark Lentz again later. If our membership, and we're going to ask them this in the survey, do they like these topics? Do they like this format of using Zoom to present information and maybe do some coaches education. The point of the fall clinic is supposed to be about educating coaches, but are we limited to just the fall clinic? Could we do a monthly topic and pick from coaches, other coaches to talk about things that need to be done? And Pat, you are a great moderator, both on your podcast and now on this. So, what could we do to continue to do this type of educational seminar to our coaches and to our members? And so I'd really like to get some input from individuals. Another thing that we're looking for is during COVID and when we were all quarantined at home, we did some things with workouts in the spring focused on wrestling, and we had member coaches that put together week-long workouts and so forth. We had several positive responses to that. We're going to ask about that again, is to find some coaches who will put together some things that are specific workouts for wrestlers. Maybe if they're not able to find their way to a mat, how do they still do things that help benefit them as wrestlers? And so again, we want to expand our services to meet the needs of our members, but we need to get input from those members to find out those needs. We don't want to just assume and do a lot of work and have people say, well, that was nice, but it didn't help the sport. It didn't grow the sport. The last thing is I want to just really honor and recognize our coaches that are out there right now. I tell people coaches by and large have a type A personality. They're highly organized, and they believe in a formula that says you take your wrestlers, you develop your practice plans, your scope of work, your goals, all those things that go along with it. And barring certain things, we all have illnesses and injuries and kids that quit the team and so forth. But by and large, if you take A and you take B, then results C tend to happen for most kids, and we can point to that. I think COVID put a lot of us, whether it was the illness or quarantines, put a lot of us in a position where sometimes we felt helpless, where we felt like the variables were outside of our control. And I'm just going to tell you, I admired the way coaches shared with each other. There was a lot of sharing that took place. How do you do this? How do you do this? We also came up with new ideas of ways to create different kinds of events. I hated to see some of the long-standing traditional tournaments not be able to happen. And I think those are there's some traditions in those, but I think we created some new things, some new events. I share things some duels that I've never seen happen before. The top 4 state championship teams got together and dueled on a Saturday. Wow. I wish I could have been there in person to have gotten to watch those duels. Live streaming wrestling events to fans across the state, across the nation. We got more Kansas wrestling into the homes of aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpas and other individuals. I didn't like spectator limits more than anybody else, but do we walk away from this saying, yeah, okay, spectator limits go away, but there still are a lot of disconnected families out there that are off in different locations that still want to see Kansas wrestlers, their nieces, their nephews, their grandchildren, their cousins, maybe it's I'm a dad halfway across the country and need to see my son wrestle, So what I'm saying is that we have a saying in our district, never waste a good crisis. A good crisis can always lead to some other things. And so here's what I'm asking is, as in this survey, the State of the State survey, we're going to ask you, what are some of those things that came about as a result of the past season that are things that coaches need to remember and maybe continue to use or grow if we're not in a COVID situation in 21, 22.
Right. Okay. Great thoughts there. Get those thoughts down so that we can continue to grow the sport in Kansas.
Absolutely.
You bet. So this has been Patrick Kelly with KWCA President Doug Vanderlinden, wishing you a successful end to the 2020-21 season. Thanks for tuning in.